Hello, if you're out there listening, it's Robin Golinski and Dr. Dennis Becker with Outwitting the Manipulator, our weekly live stream at 4 o'clock. We are coming to you unfiltered, unretouched, unedited, uncensored, in the raw, authentic selves in real time. Where we may agree or disagree, but we're going to take a deeper dive on all things to do with manipulation. Specifically today, for the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about a little path, if you will, Dennis. I guess I could describe it as a mindset, which starts with curiosity, developing that skill, critical thinking, then some courage, and then the cost of not developing those skills, which leads to compliance. And that's a juicy topic for today. We encourage you to reach out to us, comment if you can. We're still learning the live stream and the platforms and all that stuff. So if we don't respond to you, it's not because it may be because I just didn't see it. Also, we're live, so it's hard to respond in real time. But this is what we want to help you with regard to manipulation. So Dennis, what do you think?
Well, I also want to thank you for joining us today, everyone. There are thousands and thousands of you out there, we know. And if you have some comment, as Robin said, we're inviting you to put it in the chat, drop us a note. We will get back to you and answer everything that you ask us and say comments that you have. So today is a topic, as Robin said, that's a little bit different. I mean, it has to deal with manipulation, but it's not a kind of a thing that has a specific tactic aligned with it. Now, it may, as we go along, you'll see, but we're not necessarily talking about gaslighting or love bombing or apophysis. One of my favorite words. If you read the book, you know what that is. We're not necessarily talking about those, but perhaps the conflation, which is a tactic itself, the conflation of those things that lead to manipulation within certain communities, certain groups. And as you do that, how do you defend yourself from all of that? What can you do?
Well, let's start with curiosity.
Good.
So curiosity is something that we could probably spend the whole half hour just on that. But
Sure.
Curiosity is a curious mind is a thinking mind. It is a mind that's active. It is a mind that's paying attention. I would not attribute curiosity to your scrolling on your phone. That's, and as social psychologists could probably comment on the differentiation, but that's more of distraction than curiosity. Curiosity is paying attention to something that's happening and then saying, why?
Yeah.
Or what? That doesn't make sense. Or
yeah. How does that?
That's
why
odd.
did that? Yeah.
And not just brushing it by the wayside. It's staying
Yeah.
curious. It's one of the reasons people are mean to little kids, right? Because they're insatiably curious.
Why?
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 Well,
Why? Every question you
all-
answer, why? It's
I had that for
actually
so many
quite
years.
fun.
So many years with my kids. It actually is a little bit funny because it gets you to a corner where you don't know quite what to say.
Well,
So
my 3-year-old
curiosity is very
granddaughter,
important.
she's doing it now, and it can go on to infinity.
Remember that these things that we're going to be talking about today all relate to manipulation. So if you feel you're being manipulated, one of the things that's going to help you is to be curious about what's happening to you.
But in order to be curious, you need to have courage to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
And you need the other thing we mentioned, critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
Let's talk a little bit about that now. So why do we need courage?
Well, first of all, we're going to assume for the moment that you know you're in a relationship with the manipulator. And we'll get to the part about if you don't know. But if you know you're in a relationship with the manipulator, you know that certain things that are going to be said and done don't quite make sense. Now, what we're asking you to do is not just say, what, that doesn't make, but be curious enough about it to ask a question about it, to investigate it, to look at whether or not it's been done before. Be curious, but don't just accept it and say, oh, there he did it again. Oh, she said it again. No.
Well, and let's even though you're curious, Dennis, and even though you ask a question, we both know
Oh,
The
yeah. What's going to
manipulator is
happen? Yeah.
quite good at answering your
They'll
questions,
come right back at
quite
you.
good at giving you an answer that may sound kind of even plausible,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
believable. It
Yeah.
may even be something that you want to hear,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
just, so you stop there. You stop
Yeah.
there. We're
Remember, these manipulators are very smart people. They're very clever with language and understanding the psychodynamics between you and he or she, and the language and the facial expression, all the context, all the things we've talked about that go into controlling you and manipulating you. So your sense of curiosity can be a self-defense right up front. If you do nothing other than be curious and ask questions about it from now, sooner or later, the manipulator, oh, look, this is they get tired of you being so curious. They don't want you to be curious. They want you to just accept it. So curiosity is a very important self-protection technique. That's why we're saying that first.
I think it's even bigger than the individual, Dennis. If I can just go to the meta view for a quick 30 seconds here. In general, I think as a evolution at society, as people, curiosity is always going to serve us well. I think the just accepting everything, I think of this example. I always have a story that pops into my mind. I remember being in City Hall Plaza in Boston with my girls. It was a back to school weekend, and City Hall Plaza is this vast sea of cement. It's a poorly designed, they don't know what to do with sea of cement. But anyway, they had this back to school event, and there was this long, long line forming. And I walked up to someone in the line and said, "What are you standing in line for?" And they said, "I don't know." And I went further, closer to the beginning of the line. I said, do you know what you guys are in line for?" "No, I don't know. I just got in the line. I think they're giving away something." And
Oh,
I had young girls at the time, and I said, I'm super curious. Not only do I know why
mhm,
this line has formed, I want to know
mhm,
how this line has formed.
mhm.
And I cannot believe there's hundreds of
Yeah,
people in
yeah,
this line, single
yeah,
file with
yeah,
children.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
no one has the answer. So I said, my girls are like rolling their eyes, of course, like, "Oh my God, Mom, what are you doing?" I go, "No, no, 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 no. We're going to work our way all the way up to the front of this line till I get my answer." And as I got to the front of the line, there was a tent set up and a table and some people standing behind the table, and nothing was happening. The person at the front of the line was just standing there. And I said, "Why are these people in line?" And the people behind the table said, we don't know. They just started lining up. And I said, "Well, what's going to happen here?" They go, "Not much. We have some bottles of water we're going to give away, and we're going to set up some pamphlets." And I
Oh
said,
my.
"Well," and one of the persons in the line had said to me that, "I think they're giving away free backpacks that are full of school supplies."
Oh, oh.
So then I said, "Okay, girls, I can't handle this." I went back down from the front of the line to the end of the line. I said, "They're giving away water bottles a half an hour from now. There's no backpack. There's nothing else." And the whole
Yeah,
line disappeared. It just broke
yeah,
up and disappeared. And of
yeah, yeah,
course, my girls didn't care one bit about this. I was trying to give them a big life lesson. They just were
yeah,
annoyed with me, but
yeah,
I was blown away, Dennis. I
yeah.
just couldn't believe hundreds and hundreds of people just made the assumption, and nobody had the courage. I don't know if it was
Well,
courage or curiosity or
they were
both.
curious. They were
Walk
curious.
up there and ask someone, "What?
Yeah.
Why? I don't
Okay,
understand."
they were curious. That's a
They
curiosity.
were
Okay,
not
that's fine.
curious.
But they were curious enough to get in the line and stand there for as long as it took.
And
That was
I don't call
curiosity.
that curious. I call
What
that
is that? Of course, that's curious. Of
It's
course, that's
assumption. It's
what
assuming,
is what's
well, if they're
happening? What are we going to
standing
get?
there, they must know something. Everybody
Okay,
assumed the person in front of them, and then the longer the line got, and this is how it works with mindset, right?
sure.
The more
Yeah,
ethos that line had, the more people were saying, "Well, there's
yeah,
no way this many
yeah,
people would stand in
yeah,
line if
yeah,
there wasn't
yeah.
something good at the end of it."
Yeah, yeah. They weren't curious enough to go to the front of the line or ask ahead of time what's it for. They were not that level of curiosity. But they were curious enough to see the line, go over there, figure they should get in line because they don't know what it is, but it must be something good. That's a form of curiosity.
It
It's not the
must be
kind that we're
something good.
suggesting for manipulation. That's for sure. What they didn't have. Now we go on to the other C's that we have. We had curiosity, courage, critical thinking. Let's go on to one of the other C's because that's what was missing there.
Which one,
They
the
didn't.
courage or the critical thinking?
Either one. Let's say courage next. Let's say they didn't have the courage to ask to go to the front of the line. They didn't have the courage. Now, why not? Oh, it's embarrassing. Maybe I'm wrong. No, everybody else is doing it. They didn't have the courage to take upon that curiosity that they had. So they fell for the tactic of the long line and the lack of curiosity. They got in line. And they were
I
for
don't
an
even
hour,
think it was a
perhaps.
tactic. I think it was poor leadership, poor organization,
Oh,
poor
no.
signage.
No. Of course, it's those kind of things.
That's what
But
formed the
people
line.
know
They
when
set up
there's
a
a
tent
long,
and a table, and
yeah,
then the
but people,
people who were setting it up didn't even bother to
yeah,
inform the
but the people,
line.
but skilled professional manipulators, let's call them for the moment, professional manipulators know that if you create a line, it will create more of a line. People will get curious about it. So
Yes, I
that
don't think that was
alone is the
the case,
tactic.
but yeah.
That may not have been in this case, no, of course, but we have to understand that curiosity could be driven by a lot of different things, and what you need to protect yourself is the courage to investigate, explore the curious thought that you have about that incident, that comment, that line, whatever it is. That's where courage comes in, and a lot of people just don't have that. I don't want to be the only one. How am I? That's courage. You've got to
I
have the courage to
yeah,
ask.
I can't remember which episode it was, but it was a couple episodes ago where gave the example of calling out my professor for an unfair question on the test that everyone got wrong
Oh,
except
yeah.
one person.
Right.
Um, One of the things that enraged me after standing up and saying, asking everyone to raise their hands if they got it wrong, and then saying to him, that's proof that the question was unfair if everyone got it wrong.
Mhm.
He I left the class dispersed, and I had people come up to me after class and say, thank you for saying something. I was so
Mhm.
glad you said that. I was really grateful.
Mhm.
And that just
Yeah.
made me more mad because what you want is people to have the courage to say, I agree with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
point. I
Yeah.
feel the same way, but I
Yeah.
was left hanging and standing alone. And this has
Mhm.
happened to me many times in my life. And this is
Mhm.
why I feel very strongly about helping people develop the courage. I
Mhm.
think they're afraid that they're of what? We know what they're afraid of. It's the most powerful thing.
Mm. Yeah.
The biggest fear of all is some
Public
kind of public
humiliation.
humiliation.
Yeah.
And that's
Right. Right.
exactly the weapon that
Right.
the professor used. He
Right.
tried to
Right.
publicly humiliate me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no one can do that unless you allow it.
And it takes courage to not allow it. Courage, not only in the part of, let's say, you in that case, but courage for other people to stay up and say, yeah, I don't understand it either. Yeah, I think she might be right. Nobody did. Courage is not an
Yes.
easy thing to have. It's easy for us to say, and it's easy for us to tell you about. But the
But
point
oh
that
my
we're making
goodness.
about that point we're
This
making about self-humiliation is a strong, strong opposition to having courage. I don't want to be the one who. That's pretty strong.
but I will suggest here, Dennis, because we can talk about the cost of not
Yeah.
having courage, right? The cost of that. And I've brought this to many people's attention in one-on-one coaching situations. When you think, oh, I'm not going to stick my neck out, I'm not going to have everybody, maybe people will boo you or they'll shoot you a dirty look or they'll say
Mhm.
something to you that's personal or
Mhm.
nasty, right? And but even though in your gut like somebody should say something, but you're always waiting for the
Mhm.
other person to be the one to say something.
Mhm. Mhm.
The
Mhm.
cost of not doing that is later when you leave, the
Mhm.
moment has passed when you should have said something.
Mhm.
You should have said anything. You should have spoken up, even at
Mhm.
the risk of it being negated.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whatever consequences there were.
Mhm.
Now it's eroding you. This
Mm-hmm.
weighs on you. This stays in
Mm-hmm.
your psyche. It consumes energy and real estate in your brain. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Mm-hmm.
go away. Sometimes it
Yeah.
stays with you the rest of your life.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So
Why didn't
we
I?
don't
I
think
should have.
about that. We're only
Yeah.
thinking about, oh, in the moment, I don't want to be embarrassed. I
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah. Yeah.
embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, you need to start thinking about the cost of not saying something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about critical thinking. What's that all about? How does that help with this?
Yes. Yes. How does it? This is really something that is like a muscle that has to be exercised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to use your brain. I mean, you could be doing puzzles and playing games in your spare time that helps your brain too, working out puzzles. But if you're someone who won't do any puzzles ever, and you just say, no, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. Well, that part of your brain, trust me, you're probably, I feel like a psychologist is going to jump on me for this, but I feel like you're probably a very compliant person because you haven't exercised that part of your brain. So
Mm-hmm.
you're probably someone who goes along with things
Mm-hmm.
easily.
Mm-hmm.
Agreeable. There's a spectrum of disagreeable to agreeable, and people fall on that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And agreeable people are very likable people. However,
Mm-hmm.
if they're too agreeable,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have any self-protection skills.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They
Easy
also don't have a
targets.
lot of depth, right? I
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have a friend in my circle, and I can say that because I have hundreds of friends, so nobody will know who this is, but this person never ever has an opinion on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything. We could get into a heated debate in a group, and I noticed that this person never ever will stick their neck out and say, I agree or I disagree, ever, about anything. It could be even something super innocuous.
Mm-hmm.
So
Self-protection technique, though, that's a self-protection technique for a lot of people. They'd rather do that. What's the old thing
but
about
there's a cost to that.
what's
That's
the
not
old what's
protecting you.
the old saying about it's better to keep your mouth closed and be thought as dumb than open your mouth and be known as dumb. Something like that. So people
Yeah.
feel like it's better to just stay quiet because they're not going to be as smart as, they don't have the courage to back up, they don't have the information to do it. And so they just don't do
But
it.
Dennis, I can see that on certain topics. If I love to jump into the fray, and you know that. And I also read a lot and listen to many, many podcasts. So there's a lot of subjects I can speak on. But if there's a subject I really don't know anything about, or I am naive, maybe they're talking about a country I barely know anything about, I'm not going to jump in that situation, but I'm talking about someone who doesn't jump into any situation
Mhm,
ever.
mhm,
And
mhm.
that is not good.
Yeah,
That
manipulators
connections,
love those people.
absolutely. That will make
Mhm,
you a target. You're going to
mhm.
be easy peasy breezy easy
Yeah,
for me to
yeah,
go
yeah,
in
yeah,
and
yeah.
just take control of you
Now,
because you're so agreeable.
how do you display critical thinking? When you think it's a manipulator and something has been said and you're not quite sure what or how that fits or what that means, first of all, you got to have the curiosity. What does that mean? That's curiosity. Well, how did I get that? What did that mean? That's curiosity. Then you have to have the courage to say, hey, what? That's the next part. You got to have the courage to speak up.
Yeah.
And now the third part is this critical thinking. Now, what we're suggesting to you is that good critical thinking with a manipulator, ask a question about
Yes.
what you just heard. Don't give an opinion because that automatically puts it in this. Ask ask a question of
Ask a
clarification
question.
or whatever, but ask a question about what you just thought was so curious. You had the courage to speak up about. Ask a question about it and see what happens with that manipulator.
And
That's what
he who
critical
is
thinking is
asking
all.
the questions is controlling the conversation.
Oh, always,
Yes. And
always.
so, and you can answer a question with a question.
Mhm. Yeah.
It may not feel comfortable. However,
Yes.
remember that manipulators live in gray areas. They live in
Yeah.
ambiguity.
Sure. They love that.
They
So
love that.
a question like, why are you wearing that gray dress tonight? That's a question. But did you see the facial expression? Did you get the tone?
Mhm.
Why are you
Well,
wearing
they
that gray
can't on the
sweater tonight?
podcast.
Why?
So if you're watching
No.
us on the live
No,
stream,
that's right. Yeah.
Dennis
I'm
is
making a face that
scowling.
goes with it. But a question
this
like,
will end
why
up
are
in
you
the
wearing that
podcast.
gray dress tonight? Instead of answering the question, ask a question. So what do you say? You say, why does it matter? Why do you care? What difference does it make? What effect do you think it's going to ask a question of some sort, which shows that you're not just absorbing and responding to whatever they said. Why are you wearing that? No, I'm wearing it. No, no. Don't answer the question. Answer it with a question. It shows you have a critical opposition almost to the question that's being asked. Have the courage to speak up and ask a question. That's what critical thinking is all about. That's why we're giving you that
Well,
one.
you brought up the way you did that, Dennis, makes me think of one of the things with manipulation when it's happening in real time in conversation is your you'll often get a feeling that something's not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
That then we tell you to turn up the volume on that feeling. Don't dismiss it out of hand. But what's not quite right is it
Mm-hmm.
what Dennis was saying contradicted his nonverbal communication. So when the
Mm-hmm.
nonverbal is in alignment with the verbal,
Aha.
that's a mixed message, and
Yeah.
they do that often.
Often.
And they really don't like it when you call them out. So I could have said
Mm-hmm.
to Dennis, "Wow, you're scowling. How come you're scowling when you ask me that question?"
That's a question.
Short
Good.
question. The key to the question is I must stay silent after I ask it.
That's it. That's exactly right. Less is more in that case. It's exactly right. We've often told you that about the way you react to what techniques you use in reaction to the tactics that we've gone through, the 24 in the book or whatever other ones we talk about. We often say to you, keep it short and sweet. Don't give too much information back. And anything that you may think is just an opinion is information for them. They will
Let's do
use
it,
that.
Dennis. Why don't you do it again? And those of you who are only listening and not watching the live stream, he'll be scowling when he asks me the question. So
Oh,
um,
why you're telling me to do that? For goodness sakes, why do you tell me to do things like that all the time, Robin?
no, I want to go back to the role play, Dennis.
I'm
Ask
role
about
playing,
the
dear.
gray
I'm
dress.
role playing. You missed it.
I know
There's a
because I
question. All right, I'll use the old one. Okay, pay
I
attention, folks. Here we go.
because it's so
Why are you wearing that gray dress?
okay. Now I'm not when I answer him, just pausing here. When I
Uh-huh.
answer him, I'm not going to give him anything back with my nonverbal. It's just a plain neutral poker face.
Mhm.
Why are you scowling, Dennis, when you ask me that question? Now you answer.
Well, what
It's a
makes you
manip-
think I was? Why do you think I was scowling?
well, you're scowling now, and you
I
were
am.
scowling before.
Mm.
You are, yeah, you are. And
Well,
I'm
I'm
just
curious.
curious about what's behind the question. Is there
Well,
something
I'm
you'd like
thinking
to share
about
with
that.
me?
I'm
Now
thinking
notice
about.
I'm not pausing and letting him talk.
Yes,
I started talking,
and I'm trying to get in.
and I'm not
Mhm.
otherwise I'm giving him control.
Yeah, yeah.
So I continue with
Mhm.
and it's gonna be annoying to your
Yeah.
they don't like it, but this is a sign that you're succeeding.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so let's sorry, I'm
Let's do it.
stepping in and out of role here,
Do it
but
all the way through. Let's do it all the way through and show you what
okay.
happens. After that, why are you wearing that gray dress?
So Dennis, you're scowling. Is there something you'd like to share with me?
I'm not scowling. I don't think I'm scowling. Why do you think I'm scowling, for goodness sakes? Why do I'm scowling?
Well, I can bring you a mirror if you'd like to see it, but I do have eyes and your face is scowling, and I'm curious as to why.
Well, does it make a difference? Why do you think I might be scowling? Is there something in my mind about the gray dress? Gee whiz.
Oh, well,
Can't you
this is
take a
what I'm
hint?
asking you about, Dennis, because not only are you scowling, but now you're using a strong tone. So if there's
Oh my
something you'd
God.
like to share with me, please do.
Yeah, when you talk to me like this, it's just like your mother. She can never have a straight conversation and answer a question for me straight. She just has to twist it into something else. You're just like her. I can't get over it.
Okay,
Why are
so
you like that?
now you've resorted to name calling. So if you're going
Mhm.
to continue on this tact, this conversation will end.
Oh well, la di da, name calling. Ho ho. So that's all there is to it. You're gonna just
Okay,
stop talking to
this
me,
conversation is over. Now I hang up, I leave the room. You
Robin?
cannot reward the behavior with a response.
Robin. Where are you going? What? Oh,
Nothing. I give him
yeah.
nothing but silence. And yeah, he might follow me, but I need to not give him anything. And also, he may escalate the personal attacks because
Yeah. Yeah.
this is success. This
Mhm.
is, I controlled the conversation.
Yeah.
I set the rules. I dished out the consequences for communication that was destructive
Yeah.
toward me.
Yeah, and that's where it takes courage for you to do that and then to leave the room or stop the conversation. Because as I did, you see, what he will do is he will escalate. He gets louder. He'll start accusing you. He'll name call you, talk about your mother. He'll do other things. They conflate tactics. So you have to really have, let's go back. You have to really have the curiosity and the courage to hear what you hear, and then the simple, the critical thinking
Not
to be able to ask a
rewarded.
question about it and not reward it. This
Yes.
is what will work when you get this kind of manipulation. You have to have the
So what,
curiosity, the courage, and the critical
following us,
thinking.
sorry, Dennis, that time I didn't mean this.
Okay.
Following us and listening to us and getting training and coaching from us will allow you to start seeing this
Mhm.
very early on in a
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah,
Relationships start with conversation and communication.
that's
That's
right.
where they
Eh,
begin. No one can manipulate you unless they first have a conversation with you. So
yeah, and that's
becoming adept at seeing this early on, you won't get so deep where it has to get to this point where it really escalates. It doesn't get
yeah,
better.
Robin's making a very good point here. We've already said many times, manipulation can't happen without communication. However, let's think back. I want you to think back when the relationship started. It probably wasn't in any way. We maybe didn't sound manipulative and it sounded more like love bombing and it was wonderful and blah, blah, blah. When you sense, even feel that there's a change in that, that there's an attitude coming out, that there's a tone that you didn't hear before, that's the time to start getting curious. That's
And
the time
courageous.
to start having the courage to ask about that. And in the meantime, write it down. How many times have we said that? Put it in your notes because it will become a pattern. You'll notice that it happens over and over again. So jot it down after you get back to your house or in the car or whatever. Jot it down. Keep a notebook of these things because manipulators love patterns. They will do it over and over unless you stop it by having the
Yeah.
curiosity,
This is
the
where you
courage,
have
and
to
the
take
critical thinking.
responsibility. Yes. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dennis. As we wrap up here, we have 3 minutes left. We are different, not only in that we coach and train you how to handle this as it's happening, and we're the only ones we know of with a book on that. Well, at least till somebody copies us.
Mm,
But we also want you to take responsibility. We want to put you
mm,
in the seat of
mm,
control. A lot of the
mhm,
stuff out there about narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths, and that's, they're all very much like, oh, you're a victim, and oh, boo
mhm,
hoo hoo, and they got you like
mm-mm.
whining and crying and
Yeah.
relaying every hurt and slight, and
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, that sometimes that's part of the process of revealing
Yes,
to yourself your past.
understood.
But you can get stuck there, and I'll tell you
Yeah,
what, if you get
yeah.
stuck there and you don't turn this around and start realizing how you were complicit, how you allowed it to happen, and what you can
Mhm,
do to stop it, then you just better get ready, because you may have gotten rid of
mhm.
that manipulator, but you got another one right in the queue, and they're
Now
going to look different
don't
and they're
get
going to act
triggered.
different, and it's going to be the same pattern all over
Folks,
again.
don't get triggered when we use the words "you are compliant." We're not blaming you. We're not saying that you're doing something wrong. We're saying that unknowingly, perhaps, you are allowing and encouraging the manipulator to come on, to come after you
Yes, you
another
may
way.
not be
So
realizing that you're
we don't mean
rewarding
to,
the behavior.
yeah, we're not blaming you
Thank
for
you,
the
Dennis.
trouble you're
Dennis
having.
is I'm more of the tough love, and Dennis is more. That's why we love doing this together, because we're yin and yang.
Which is which,
And you're
that's up for
right.
you guys. You guys to figure that out.
You're right. There's a lot of lack of awareness, but no, we're
Yeah.
not going to sit there and encourage you to cry in your soup and repeat the stories and
No,
talk about how you were the victim. And
no,
a lot of
no,
times, that's the reward for you, is that you can blame everything on the manipulator and you don't have to take responsibility
yeah.
yourself.
Mhm. Now,
So
if you need help with any of this, That's why we're here every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here to chat with you about this. We've got loads and loads of other podcasts that you can get. Outwit in Real Time is the way to reach us.
.com.
Don't forget the .com, Outwit in Real Time.
Oh, it could be whatever these days.
And remember today,
today
the
our
message
subscribers are growing.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
Thousands by the thousands. That's great. That's great. We're loving the fact that you're finding this helpful. Remember today, the words are curious, be curious,
critical
courage
thinking.
to call it out, and have the critical thinking to ask questions in return, and
don't
avoid the cost that could be coming in. You're not going to be compliant. So that's our message today. And we're delighted that you were with us. Be with us again next week. Check out the book, check out the other podcasts. Until that time, for my colleague, Robin Golinski, I'm Dr. Dennis Becker, saying thanks for listening and bye for now.